Hey everybody, this is Brian from Carving is Fun, and in this video I'm going to share with you my review on the Case Cutlery Seahorse Whittler. Now, as this channel is all about carving, this video will be primarily focused on using this knife for wood carving and whittling. Now, starting off, I really wanted to like this knife. It is an absolutely gorgeous knife with a great finish on it. But the things that held me back primarily were the poor cutting edge straight from the manufacturer and the main blade design. I did not feel like it was conducive for whittling from the angle grind and how thick the knife is. But let's get on some of the specs on here. The steel that they're using on here is Case Cutlery's True Sharp Surgical Stainless Steel. It has a Rockwell hardness of 54 to 57, which is actually below the threshold where you want your whittling knife to be. You typically want your whittling knife to have a Rockwell hardness between 58 and 61 or 62. So it's going to be a little bit softer metal. It comes from Case with a general purpose cutting edge. It was very rough grind. If you want to use it for anything like fine cutting or anything like that, you're going to want to hone it down and probably grind the cutting edge back, because it was a pretty steep cutting edge. That being said, it has an okay edge retention. You are going to have to hone it more often. But one of the things that might turn some of you off is the actual price of the knife. This one is $70, or at least that's how much I paid for it. There are different versions with the different panels and finish to them, which are more expensive, but I got the cheaper version just to test out. It's not a bad price for the knife. I have more expensive knives than this one, but still that might deter some of y'all. Now let's go over some of the things that I actually really did like about the knife. For one, like I said, it's an absolutely gorgeous knife. It's very well finished. Like, even the rivets are not obtrusive. The panels taper down to the brass very nicely. There are no gaps going along the spine on this one. They did a good job finishing this one off. Now, some of the other cool things that this knife has is it has 3 different knives on it. This one is their main cutting knife, and then it comes with 2 other knives, which are much smaller and good for adding detail and whatnot. All 3 knives are different knives altogether, but you get a couple different options if you want to start cutting some wood or doing other projects. You might even want to designate one of these knives as your main whittling knife, and the other ones for just everyday use kind of stuff, so you don't have to worry about dulling out your main whittling knife. Now, another thing I really liked about it is that there's very little to no blade wobble on there, so the knives don't move around too much like you would on a cheaper knife. It has pretty good spring action to it, so it's not gonna come back on your hand very easily, so it's got good tension on it, but yet it's not really hard to open and close. It's pretty nice. There's no locking mechanism on it, but I don't feel like you need it for this knife. It stays in put pretty dang well. But yeah, overall, this is a great everyday carry knife. Great knife to have around, and if you're a collector, beautiful knife to add to your collection. If that's your main goal, I'd go for it. But if you are looking for a dedicated whittling knife, I probably would say put your money elsewhere. There are other knives out on the market that will do way better than this, and I'll get on those here in a sec. Now, if you want to see some other knives that I compared this knife to for whittling and wood carving, I made a whole video on that. You can check that one out. I have it in the description below and at the end of the video if you want to see it. That way you have some good comparisons to see what you might want instead of this knife. Now, some of the things I wasn't too terribly fond about this knife was the blade thickness. Like, this is a pretty hefty blade on there. Let's compare it to this is the FlexCut Whittling Jack, which is my preferred whittling knife. It's the one I carry with me every day. You can see there is a huge difference right there, just how thick that blade is. And the thicker blade will increase your cutting angle, giving you a pretty steep cutting angle. Usually you want your whittling knives to have a cutting edge between maybe 15 to 20 degrees, primarily because then it'll allow you to slice through the wood a little bit easier. Now this one I did modify the cutting edge a bit. I ground it back because the original cutting angle on it was really steep and it was very rough. It needed a lot of work before I could actually whittle with it whittle with the knife the way I'm doing right now. Let's do a quick example of like what the edge could be like from the manufacturer. This is the Case Cutlery medium Stockman, which, by the way, if you're going to pick up a Case Cutlery knife for whittling, I probably would pick up the Stockman knife. It's a little bit cheaper and it also has thinner blades on it, so like you can see, pretty big difference in blade thickness. But even then, it doesn't come with as nice of a cutting edge. You can see I'm still kind of struggling to make as deep a cuts I was doing with this knife that I worked on. Case's cutting edge from the manufacturer just suck. There's no other way to really describe it. Their cutting edge straight from Case are terrible. You need work if you're gonna actually use it for anything fine detail whittling like this. Like, I spent a good 30 minutes grinding this edge back and then honing it down to be acceptable. Now, some of the other things I wasn't too fond of involve some of the other blades on here. Like the smaller knives, while they are probably better for adding like minor details and whatnot, they don't come sharp from the manufacturer as well. And one of my biggest gripes about them, since it is a softer steel, is that they have a good amount of flex to them. Like if I'm adding detail to the wood, I don't want it flexing while I'm trying to cut some fine details in there, because that can cause my blades to go just like haywire a little bit and I won't have as straight of a line as I want. Only time I really want any sort of flex in my knives is if I'm using a fillet knife. It just makes it easier for that. But if I'm using it for general wood carving, I like my knives to be a bit more rigid. And some of the other things I wasn't really too crazy about was the main blade is a bit long. I mean, sure, it comes with a smaller blade right there, but I kind of find it useless for my type of whittling. And even with this one, part of the reason why I wear the guard on my front finger is so I can choke up on the knife if I want to do any details that way. But yeah, overall, the Seahorse Whittler is a good knife, but if you're looking for a dedicated whittling knife, I would say you have other options that would do much better than this knife. For one, like I said, I'd probably pick up the medium Stockman over the Seahorse Whittler if you're trying to stay within the Case Cutlery line. I feel like the blades are a bit thinner and it would do a little bit better job than actually the Seahorse Whittler once you get it honed up and everything. It's a little bit cheaper than the Seahorse Whittler, but great knife. If you want another knife that's great for just whittling, like I said before, my personal favorite one is the FlexCut Whittling Jack. It comes out of the box whittling sharp and ready to go. The knife is perfectly angled to cut right through wood. You can see it's cutting right through this basswood, no problem whatsoever. This one is my personal favorite one, and it's like 45 bucks. So you're saving some money compared to the Case Cutlery one if you're trying to get a dedicated whittling knife. Now noted, this one is not as pretty as the Case Cutlery, so if you want a nice looker, then yeah, the Case Cutlery's got a beat there. But the FlexCut Whittling Jack, great pocket whittler right there. But if you want another knife that's a little bit more expensive and kind of a higher end knife, you can get the Great Eastern Cutlery number 62 pocket carver. This one is a purpose-driven pocket whittler. The knives are created properly for general whittling purposes that are right lengths, and the coolest thing too, they give you two of the same smaller detail knives, so if you wear one of them out, guess what, you got another one that you can just flip over to. Great idea. Now this one is the farm and field version, so it's the cheaper version of the 62 pocket carver. It's got a different handle on it, so it's not as fancy as the general or their main line, but it whittles pretty dang good. I really like that knife. But yeah, overall, good knife. Not necessarily what I consider it good for a dedicated whittling knife. Now this channel is all about carving, and it lets me have fun by showing you some of my wood carvings, stone carvings, and all the fun little tools I get to use along the way. So feel free to like and subscribe. It lets me know that you all are enjoying the videos, and it keeps me motivated to keep making them for you. Let's get this thing finished up here real quick. Yeah, I'd say we're about done. Yeah, that's about it. All right. Thanks for watching, folks. I hope you have yourself a good day.